I didn't set out to become a villain. Not at first. I was just a man with bees and a love for the quiet hum of nature that echoed louder in my soul than the buzzing cell phones and HOA newsletters ever could. My name's Eli Turner, 46 years old, former software engineer turned full-time apiarist. And if you ask anyone in the Windgrove Estates community, they'll either call me a recluse, a nuisance, or the reason their zucchini now tastes like cardboard. Let me back up. 3 years ago, I bought a 4-acre plot of land right on the edge of Windgrove, a sprawling suburb built like a gated utopia for the upwardly entitled. Think well-manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and enough HOA rules to fill a courtroom. They didn't know what to do with me, a single man with no kids, no dog, and a passion for beekeeping. I'd moved there because the location was perfect, close to the farms and orchards that lined the valley. My bees had miles of clover, apple blossoms, and squash flowers to explore. I'd built them a modest little setup in the back corner of my property. 6 hives at first, then 10. Over time, they flourished. And so did the local crops. The farmers near the edge of town, they loved me, said their yields had nearly doubled, even gave me crates of fresh produce in exchange. But none of that mattered to the HOA. I should have known the first time I got a warning letter, signed by Lorraine Pendleton, the HOA president with the bleached smile and Botox eyebrows. The envelope was delivered with no postage, no stamp, just slipped under my door like a mafia threat. Mr. Turner, it has come to our attention that you are harboring multiple bee colonies within the Windgrove residential limits. This constitutes a violation of Article 7, Section 14 of our HOA bylaws regarding non-domestic animal husbandry. Please remove the hives within 14 days or face legal penalties. I laughed. Honestly, I read it while sipping honey-sweetened tea on my porch, bees buzzing lazily in the late afternoon sun. I figured someone was being dramatic, that maybe a neighbor complained after a single bee flew into their wine spritzer. But Windgrove doesn't do warnings lightly. The second letter came with photos, zoomed-in shots of my hives, grainy surveillance from someone peeking over my fence. This time it included a cease and desist, a threat of daily fines, and language that made it clear this wasn't a conversation, it was an ultimatum. That night, I drove to the edge of town and met up with George Navarro, an almond grower who ran 80 acres of orchards. I told him the situation. He just shook his head and spat sunflower seeds. Eli, you take those bees away, we're all screwed. You're not just helping me, you're helping damn near every farm within 5 miles. You know how much we rely on pollinators? You take your hives, you take half our harvest with you. I knew he was right. But I also knew Lorraine Pendleton didn't give a damn about farms or harvests. She cared about HOA rules, power, and the way her hydrangeas looked in front of her marble fountain. So I made a choice. I went to the next HOA meeting. They didn't expect me to show up. Most residents just forwarded their complaints through passive-aggressive emails. I walked in wearing a flannel shirt still stained with honey wax, holding a single jar of fresh clover honey like an offering to the gods. The room went quiet. Rows of perfectly tanned homeowners turned to look at me like I'd just tracked mud on white carpet.
Lorraine sat at the center table, flanked by her loyal board. Steve, the retired banker. Melanie, the yoga instructor who never smiled. And Gary, who was only there because his wife made him. I stepped up to the microphone. "I'm Eli Turner," I said. "I'm the one with the bees." Dead silence. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to ask you to reconsider. My hives aren't just for me. They're helping the valley. I've got farmers who'll testify. People whose livelihoods depend on these bees. You might not like the aesthetics, but what I'm doing matters." Lorraine's smile was so fake, I swear I heard it crack. "Mr. Turner," she said, her voice dripping sugar and vinegar, "this is a residential community. Your hives may be useful elsewhere, but they're in direct violation of the HOA bylaws. The rules are clear. You have 7 days. After that, we'll begin legal proceedings." I held up the honey jar. "This came from bees that pollinated your neighborhood, your apple trees, your flowers. You're benefiting from them, whether you like it or not." She didn't even look at the jar. "7 days," she repeated, "or we call animal control." So I left, and I waited. 7 days passed. I didn't move the hives. I didn't move an inch. On the 8th day, animal control came. They brought a truck, suits, veils, boxes, treated me like I was harboring a biohazard. They took all 10 hives. I tried to argue. One of them whispered, "Sorry, man, this is insane," as he gently placed the last frame into a crate. But rules were rules. Wingrove applauded itself. Lorraine called it a victory for neighborhood integrity in the HOA newsletter. Said they'd removed a dangerous infestation. They didn't know they just declared war. The first signs came 2 weeks later. Wilkins Farm, just down the road, saw a 40% drop in its tomato yield. The sunflowers at Jenkins' orchard, half of them didn't bloom. The bees weren't there to dance across petals, to spread the golden message of life. But it got worse. The apple grove behind Lorraine's house, a showpiece of Wingrove landscaping, turned sickly. The blossoms browned early. No apples grew. Her fountain dripped irony in the hot sun. Farmers started knocking on my door. Some drove 2 hours just to talk. George Navarro returned, red-faced with rage. "You said they took your hives? That's why my orchard looks like a graveyard. My almonds are dying, Eli. We need your bees back, now." But I didn't have them. I'd moved the hives to a protected lot near the forest ridge, just outside Wingrove's reach. My bees were safe, but their reach wasn't what it used to be. Too far, too scattered. The damage spread like rot. One by one, the farms around Wingrove began to fail. Cucumbers shriveled, squash came out misshapen, strawberry patches yielded nothing but sour leaves. The air, once alive with the buzz of pollination, felt eerily still. Wingrove began to suffer in silence. Their community farmers market, once the pride of their Instagram feeds, closed early for the season. Prices at the stores rose. Even the HOA newsletter had to awkwardly announce diminished community harvests due to unforeseen environmental challenges. Unforeseen my ass. They didn't make the connection until Lorraine's prize garden turned into a desert. No roses, no peonies, just dry sticks and cracked soil. She hired a botanist, paid him $400 an hour. His diagnosis? No pollination activity, likely due to loss of local bee population. She turned ghost pale. But I was done playing nice. So when she came to my house, 2 months after the infestation had been removed, her heels crunching across the gravel driveway like a humble pilgrim, I waited.
She knocked. I opened the door with another jar of honey in my hand. Her smile this time was real but brittle. "Mr. Turner," she began, "I believe we may have, acted in haste. It seems there were unintended consequences. We're hoping you might consider restoring your hives. For the community, for the health of our environment." I raised the honey jar and looked her dead in the eye. "I remember you said this was a dangerous infestation. You still feel that way?" She didn't respond. "I'm not your fix-it man. You made your choice. But the community is suffering. So were the farms. You didn't care then." I let the silence hang until she shifted on her feet, wilting like her roses. We're willing to work something out. A formal exemption. Full support from the HOA board. I leaned against the doorframe. You'll have to do better than that. Because I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Lorraine's eyes had that glassy sheen of someone trying not to blink too fast. Pride was a hard pill for her to swallow, and I was making sure it lodged halfway down. But let me be clear. This wasn't about being petty. This was about principle. About a community that mocked something they didn't understand, then came crawling when their foundations started to rot. They wanted bees? Fine. But it would be on my terms. 3 days after her visit, I received a letter, officially stamped by the HOA board, offering a full reversal of their decision. Not just that. They drafted a new bylaw allowing controlled pollination management operations, a phrase so sterile it made beekeeping sound like a military protocol. They even offered me a $5,000 grant for equipment and community support. Cute. But I hadn't forgotten the humiliation, the threats, the sight of my hives being hauled off my land like evidence from a crime scene. So I made my counteroffer. I drafted my own letter, hand-delivered it. Dear Windgrove HOA, I appreciate your willingness to reconsider your position, but before I reintegrate my hives into the community, I will require the following. A formal written apology signed by the HOA board to be published in the community newsletter and local newspaper. A permanent exemption from any future regulation involving agricultural or environmental projects on my land. A 15-year agreement wherein the HOA will provide active support for environmental education programs in Windgrove, including workshops hosted by me. A commemorative plaque placed at the community garden reading, "In recognition of Eli Turner, whose bees saved Windgrove." Until these terms are met, my hives will remain outside HOA boundaries. Sincerely, Eli Turner, apiculturist, neighbor, and apparently your last hope. 2 days later, I got a call from Melanie. Yes, that Melanie. The yoga instructor who once voted to fine a neighbor $500 for painting his shutters off-white instead of eggshell. She didn't sound smug anymore. Eli, we're willing to move forward. Are you accepting all terms? I asked, a sigh. Yes, all of them. I could have ended it there. But no, one more thing. I want Lorraine to present the plaque, in person, at the community garden, during the Harvest Festival. Another pause. She'll hate that. I made her watch my hives get dragged off my land. I think she can manage a few words in front of a tulip bed. All right. The Harvest Festival arrived like a broken promise. Sparse produce, wilted bouquets, and an uncomfortable tension in the air. The usual display tables were mostly empty, save for the overpriced artisan bread and a desperate wine-tasting booth. But the crowd was big. Curiosity's a hell of a magnet.
They wanted to see me. And Lorraine. She stood beside the new bronze plaque, her face tight, lips a strained crescent. The garden behind her looked sick, dead vines curling like burned string. She wore a floral dress that tried to distract from the drought around her. I waited until she adjusted the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, neighbors, she began, tone brittle, we are gathered here to honor someone whose contributions we, as a community, underestimated. Underestimated? I could hear the farmers near the back snorting. Mr. Eli Turner's bees have played a vital role in the health of not only our local farms, but our very own Windgrove ecosystem. She looked like someone stepping on a rake, owe him a debt of gratitude and an apology. The wind picked up. A few bees buzzed lazily past. She turned to me, holding the plaque. I stepped forward. "Thanks, Lorraine," I said, loud enough to carry. "It takes courage to admit a mistake, especially when you almost doomed your neighborhood trying to enforce a rule about non-domestic animals." A few chuckles. I took the plaque, raised it. The crowd clapped, hesitant at first, then louder. Some even cheered. Not for me, not really. For the food that might return, the flowers, the taste of something other than dried disappointment. I brought back the hives the next day. 12 of them this time. Bigger, healthier colonies. My bees took to the gardens like they never left. You could feel it, smell it. Flowers lifted their heads again. The trees stretched taller. Even the air shimmered with that quiet hum of work and life. The changes came quickly. Farms bounced back, yields climbed, the farmers market returned. Lorraine started crediting the HOA's forward-thinking environmental policies in the newsletter. Of course she did. But I made sure everyone remembered. My workshops were packed. I taught kids how to spot a queen. I showed parents how honeycomb formed. I got invited to local schools, even a TEDx talk in the city. My honey business exploded. Windgrove Honey, TM, with labels showing a cartoon bee wearing a tiny hard hat. The town didn't just embrace the bees, they embraced me. But here's the twist in the tale. I never wanted revenge. Not really. I wanted respect, recognition, the kind every beekeeper deserves, because we're stewards of something ancient and fragile. And when Windgrove forgot that, they paid the price. Still, now I'm not a saint. So yes, I made Lorraine unveil that plaque. I put it right in the middle of the community garden where everyone sees it. And beneath my name, it reads, "The bees never left. You just stopped listening." And every morning now, when the sun rises over Windgrove, it breaks through a chorus of blossoms. Apple, cucumber, wildflowers, dancing with bees. My bees. And Lorraine? She orders 3 jars of honey a month, online, under a fake name. But I know it's her, because every jar comes with a handwritten note. Thank you. And that, my friend, that's the sweetest honey of all.